This is a complete walkthrough of how to do Building Java Programs, Chapter 2, Programming Project 6, which is this RocketShip here. And I'm going to be doing that as a prelude to being able to do problem 7, which is the Space Needle. And I'm going to do a complete walkthrough from the very beginning. So let's bring up Eclipse here. We're going to do File, New, Java Project, and then I'm going to call this RocketShip. When you create a new Java project, you need to be thinking about exactly how you want to spell this project name, because you will not be able to change it later. This is going to be the name of your class, and yeah, you want to be sure what you want to do. Personally, I like to use the same folder for both source and class files, but it's up to you. And default location is fine. So what this has done is create a project, but we still need to create an actual class. So, actually I need to, hold on a second. I've hidden my project package explorer window, and that's going to make it a little bit challenging. So I'm going to bring this up here. So once you've created your new Java project, you need to go into the Java project so that it knows which project to create the class under. I'm going to create a new class. We'll call it RocketShip. We're going to name the class, same thing. Do not use the package, leave it public. And let's go ahead and create a main for us. Okay, so this is our class. It's got a framework for main here. So first of all, let me use JavaDoc. And in Eclipse, I can do that by doing a /* above the line that actually defines the method. Hit enter, and it automatically does a JavaDoc framework. If I had had other params here, it would have passed that in. And I'm going to call this RocketShip draws an ASCII rocket ship. Now, that's not a really good explanation for what the thing is. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to copy this, and I'm going to paste it right into the file. Okay, so this now becomes a very clear picture of what this is supposed to do. I'm having a little troubles getting it exactly right because JavaDoc is very specific on what it tries to do. But that's what I'm going to be drawing. Okay, so now we're going to think about how to break this problem up. Okay, Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 are all about figuring out how to break down a problem. So as I look at this problem, I see I've got this structure here, which is repeated down here. So I'm probably going to have the same thing called twice. So let's call it draw cone. And I'm going to repeat the same thing here. Oops. Okay, so we're going to call draw cone at the beginning and at the end. Now I've got this line here that's repeated here, here, and here. You got to be careful because sometimes they might not be the same, but it seems to be the same. So I'm going to call that draw separator. Okay, and so I'm going to need to do that once, and then another time, and then another time, and then that's the end. Then I see I've got what looks like 2 blocks of this stuff here. But I see that actually more than that, I've got this thing here that looks like it's pointing up. That's repeated here. And this thing that's kind of pointing down, that's repeated here. But they're not in the same order, right? So they flip between here and here. So I can't just draw this whole thing twice. I'm going to have to draw it as 2 different pieces. So I'm going to say draw up, draw down, and then I'm going to copy these ones, paste them down here, but I'm going to have to flip the order. Okay. Further, I should probably comment a little bit here. Let's say draw top of rocket, then draw upper section of rocket, then draw a lower section of rocket, and then finally draw rocket engine. Okay. The goal of your commenting is that you want someone else to be able to come in and without having to read all of your code, they can immediately see what your program is going to do. So this is a nice example because they can just see right here and they can see exactly what they're going to draw. And then here, without reading this code, you want to be able to break this down into sections. Whenever you have a big section of code, it's a good idea to put a comment. You don't want to put a comment on every single line. All right, so you've got all these red X's here because we haven't defined any of these. So let's go ahead and start doing that. In fact, what I'll do is I'll save a little bit of typing by copying this and then using that public static void draw cone. And I can actually just copy this now. We're going to need that. We're going to need that. We're going to need that. And then let's replace those semicolons with braces. Oops. Okay, so I've got those things there. Now let's get some JavaDoc going here. And draw a cone. Draws the ASCII cone. I'm gonna, since these don't have any parameters, I can just kind of copy and paste those, but I'll change this to be from draw cone, it'll be separator. And then this becomes up. Let's call them triangles. And this becomes draw down. Okay, but again, that's not a real clear definition of what we're doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly copy and paste these things in here, and I'll come right back after I'm done. All right, so now we've got this big comment here at the top. We've got for each method, we've got a JavaDoc header with exactly what the ASCII output is that we want to make. Okay, so now let's work on the first one, draw a cone. So when I look at this, draw a cone, so one way you could do this is with just a bunch of printlns, but that is not the way that we're supposed to be doing this problem. In particular, the problem actually wants you to be able to size it so that this is size, I'm not sure what size, maybe, I think it's probably size 5 because there are 5 rows. They want you to build it any size, so you could have 2 rows or 7 rows or whatever. I'm not going to be showing you that because I consider that to be an advanced topic. So let's just plan on doing it in this size, but we're going to actually build our own for loops. So again, I'm going to comment, and this is, some people are confused, what is pseudocode? So this is, pseudocode can be comments, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to say what we're going to need to do is the overall structure of this code is we're going to have a outer for loop over rows 1 to 5. We're going to have an inner for loop for the forward slash. We're going to have an inner actually, we can just, because we're always just doing print stars, we can just do print. And that's actually not a good comment either, because that's such a short comment for one line of code, it's not really worth it. But we'll fix that later. Inner for loop for reverse slash. And then all of these are actually going to be inside like that. Okay, so that is really pseudocode. Okay, so now let's work on getting the actual code. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here, and this example is very simple, but not all examples are. In particular, exercise 7 becomes much more complicated. So what I'm going to do is analyze how many slashes I have for each of these 5 rows and come up with a loop expression. So I'm going to say that there are, okay, so the rows variable, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the count of slashes equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, and I can already see there's a bug, right? Because what I need to do here is I need to have an inner for loop for the spaces, okay? And I'm going to start this. I'm going to copy this down here. Okay. And let's do count of spaces. And let's see how many spaces do I need here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. So it's going to be 5, 4, 3, 2, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Now, what's the expression for this? That's going to be, so I see that they increase by 1, or sorry, decrease by 1 each time. So I know that is a factor of 1. It's a factor of -1, in fact. So it's going to be relative to rows. So I know it's row times -1, and then I have to figure out an offset. So when row is 1, that's going to be -1. So what -1 is 5? That would be 6. So 6 minus 1 is 5. Okay, when row is 2, 6 minus 2 is 4. We look at the last one. When row is 5, 6 minus 5 is 1, which is what we wanted. So we know that works. And then the expression for the slashes is, it's very simple. It's just row, okay? Because when row is 1, we want 1 slash. And when row is 2, same 2. And when row is 5, it's going to be 5, okay? So let's start writing some code now. For int row, please use names that make sense. I, J, K, X, Y, Z, these are not going to help you any when you start doing complicated code. So please get used to it right now. Int row is equal to 1, while row is less than or equal to 5. Row plus plus. Always, when you're a beginner, use 1 to whatever number, because while it can work and sometimes it works better to use other numbers, it becomes more complicated. So we're trying to do this as simply as possible. So the inner loop for int spaces is equal to, it's going to start with, the first one is going to be when row is 1, we figured out the spaces is actually 5. 6 minus 1 times row. But and so that might lead you to think, well, what we need to do is start with spaces 5 and decrement. And that'll work for this example, but it won't easily work for all examples. So I'm going to show you the most simple way to do this, okay? So int spaces is equal to 1. Spaces is less than or equal to 6 minus 1 times row. Spaces plus plus. What we're doing, this loop is going to print system.out.print, not println, and then it's just going to be space, okay? So what is this inner loop going to do? When row is 1, it's going to print, it's going to start with spaces equal to 1, while spaces is less than or equal to 6 minus 1, so that's 5. So up through 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's going to do what? It's going to print out a single space. Okay? So it's going to print 5 spaces for that first row. And then it's going to print, we need to print out the forward slash. So let's move on to that next loop. And notice that these loops here are sequential loops. They're not nested within here, but they're all nested within this outer for loop, okay? So forward slashes, and we're going to do the same thing. For int slashes equal to 1, slashes less than or equal to, what's the expression we just figured out? It's row. Slashes plus plus, and then system.out.print, and then a forward slash. Okay, now here's where I said don't bother giving me a comment for that. Just do a system. By the way, sys, and then you hit sys out, and then I hit control space. That gives me this whole expression. Just a shortcut. And 2 stars. except I don't want println, I want just print. Okay, then inner loop for reverse slash for int. Now I could use slashes again, but we'll do r/1, r/s less than or equal to. Now, we didn't specifically write out the reverse slashes, but it turns out to be the exact same expression. So we can do the same thing, 6 minus 1 times row. Okay, so here we're going to do sys out, and it's going to be, okay, now you should know by now that in order to print a reverse slash, you actually need to do 2 of them. Okay, so that is going to draw the cone. Now, right now, as it is, I have code for draw cone. I don't have any code for the others. But as it is, I have a working program. So let's try to actually, I could just run it, but I'm actually going to debug it just to give you more experience in debugging. Let's go ahead. We're going to set a breakpoint. I set it right there in draw cone, and I'm going to run debug. And normally it would ask you if it's okay to switch perspective, which it is. Okay, so now I actually stopped the code right here at draw cone. The only variables that are showing so far are mains args, and we don't have anything going on here yet. So let me slide this window over just a half character so we can absolutely see everything. All right, so let's practice stepping not over first, but stepping into. The reason why is if I stepped over, it would just go down here. Okay, I need to step into draw cone. So I'm going to step into, or F5. Okay, now here I can step into or over, and it's just going to go through it. I'll go ahead and step over. So first thing it does, it sets up the row variable, and you'll see that right here. So now row is equal to 1. Okay. And we're going to then go into the inner loop. So now I've got row and spaces, okay? And it's going to loop spaces as 1. And you notice that the variable changes to yellow when it changes. The first time it shows up, it's just going to be white. But when it changes to a new thing, it's going to change to yellow. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so this is how debugging can help you figure out whether your expression is wrong. If your expression is wrong, you're going to see right here that it printed out too many spaces. You can't see in the output the spaces, but we will in just a second. Okay, so now we're going to print out /. We should print out one of these slashes. And because row is 1, it does 1 execution, and that should be it. Okay, then we go to printing the 2 stars. And, oh, I know what the bug is going to be. We'll get there in a second. So we're going to print out 1 / 2, 3, 4. Okay, so what we did is I used the wrong expression here. So the reverse slash should have been the same as the /, which is row. Okay, instead I used the 6 minus row. Okay, so that's a bug. It's very simple to fix. So what we're going to do is we're going to stop the execution with terminate there. We can edit the code right here. So let's go in here. And let's replace this with row. Okay. So now let's actually set a breakpoint right here because that's where we wanted to see. And we'll do run debug, and it'll hit my first breakpoint here, and then I can actually run resume F8. That's going to skip over all the code until the next breakpoint. Okay, so here's where we left off last time. So now I'm going to use the step over. So now it's just going to print out 1 reverse slash, and then it's done. Okay, now there is another bug which let's go ahead and do. So row is now 2, and then we're going to print out, so 6 minus 2 is 4, so we're going to print out 4 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4. Great. Now we're going to print out the first character here. So there's going to be row is 2, so it's going to print out 2 slashes. 1, 2. But look, we forgot something here. What did we forget? We forgot to do a println. So let's go in here. After this, we need to do a sys out, control space, println, and let's try running it again. But this time, I don't need to do a breakpoint here. What I wanted to do is I wanted to see it when it comes back around the second time for these slashes. So I'm going to set a breakpoint right here. So let's run debug It's going to hit the first breakpoint. I'm actually going to clear this breakpoint because I don't really want to see that anymore. I'll go ahead and resume. Okay, so that's the first time. Run, resume. This is the second time. Oh, actually, it's still on that first execution. Let's step over this. This is still row 1. Okay, let's run, resume to get us to the second time. Okay, so now we're on row 2 right here. This is where we left off a second ago. And now let's see how many slashes it's supposed to print. It's supposed to print 2 slashes. 1, 2. Good. And it print this double stars. And now this is supposed to print 2 reverse slashes. Good. Next line. Okay, so now row becomes 3. It's highlighted there. So now we're going to see 6 minus 3 is 3 spaces. So 1, 2, 3. Then we're going to print out slashes. So now row is 3, so it should print out 1, 2, 3. So this is looking pretty good. So let's go ahead and run, resume. And oh, I need to clear my breakpoint. Okay, I'm going to clear the breakpoint, run, resume, and now it prints out the entire thing. So it looks like it's working, so that's good. So now what we need to do is work on our next routine. So we've done that. This one here couldn't be simpler. Sys out, and then let's just copy and paste this. Are any of these special characters that need backslash? Nope, doesn't look like it. Then I've got draw up and draw down. Okay, so let's think about this. So it looks like I've got 2, not spaces, they're dots, 1 dot, 0 dot. And then here I've got 1 set of triangles, 2 set of triangles, and then 3 set of triangles. Okay, so let's try coming up with some documentation for this. So the rows are 1, 2, 3. And then the dots, say specifically count of dots, is equal to 2, 1, 0. So the expression is relative. So we know that it's -1 times row. And what's the offset? So when row is 1, we want the answer to be 2. So what minus 1 is going to equal 2? Well, it's 3 minus 1 would equal 2. On row 2, that's 3 minus 2, that's 1. And then the last one, 3 minus 3 is 0. So that looks like the right expression. And then let's figure out the same expression here for the, okay, so next thing is the number of triangles. Okay, so here we want 1, 2, 3. So here it's no longer, we see that it's going up by 1, so it's +1 times row. And is there any offset? There's no offset, okay, because 1, 2, 3 is going to give us 1, 2, 3. And actually, if you look here, this is interesting. So there's 1, 2, and 1, 2 afterward. There's 1, 2 before and 1, 2 afterwards. So it actually is a double image on the row here. So the entire thing needs to be printed twice. So what we're going to do is we have there's actually 3 levels here. I'm trying to think of how to call this. Okay, so repeat twice, and I'll just go ahead and do the code here. For int rep equals 1, while rep less than or equal to 2, rep plus plus. So this is actually going to be a triply nested loop. But again, just completely ignore that we have this outer third triply nested loop, and let's just focus on the inner 2. So outer loop over rows 1, 2, and 3. And then we've got inner loop on dots. Got an inner loop on triangles. And we've got an inner loop on dots. Same thing. Okay, so let's put some code to this as well. for int, so this is rows equals 1, while rows less than or equal to 3, rows plus plus, and then we've got the inner loop of dots. Dots equals 1, dots is less than or equal to, and I'll just leave this for a second, and dots plus plus. I'm also going to show you a shortcut that works well for this program. You don't actually need braces if you're just going to print one line in the for loop. So this will be a sys out of dots. Then here for int triangle, well, let's just call it try for short, equals 1. Try is less than or equal to, and I'm going to leave that blank for a second, try plus plus, and then sys out of, this becomes a slash, and then 2 backslashes because, again, you can't just do 1 slash. An inner loop of dots, so I'm just going to copy this code. Okay, well, before I copy it, let's finish this now. Okay, let's take another look. And by the way, when you're done debugging, you can switch back to the normal Java view by doing that, and so you see I got a lot more space. Okay, so the dots, we figured out the dots expression is 3 minus 1 times row, and we figured out the triangles is 1 times row, it's just row, okay? So we're going to put that there. Then, okay, what is this error? This error is row cannot resolve to a variable. We can fix this. I only did it in 2 of the places, so let's just go ahead and do that. All right, so what we need to do is copy dots down here. It's going to do the same thing. All right, I think we have something that's workable there. So let's do this. I'm going to select, sometimes after you're done with code, you're not sure whether your brackets are right or not. Please do this. Go into source, correct indentations. Okay, so I don't think I saw anything change, so I think it's actually correct. So let's see what this program draws now. So this is going to draw a cone, draw a separator. Yeah, okay. So let's set a breakpoint at draw up. That's what we wrote, right? We draw what we wrote. Draw up. Yes. Okay, good. So now let's run debug. We may have to clear a breakpoint. No? Okay, so we're here. So let's step into draw up. And now let's take a look. I'm stepping over. So rep is 1. That's good. Okay, dots, row is 1. Rep is 1, row is 1. Now we're going to do dots. So row is 1, so we should be 3 minus 1. So we should have 2 dots here. So we print dot, dot. Okay, now we're doing the triangles. Row is 1, so we should be doing 1 triangle. Then we've got the dots again, so it's going to print dot, dot. Oh, okay, I forgot the, here, let's go ahead and finish this first. Okay, so now we're on row 2. So now there should be 3 minus 2 is 1, so there should be 1 dot. And then row is 2, so we should be printing 2 triangles. Okay, so we forgot the println again, but let's just make sure this works. Yeah, okay. So let's stop this and let's fix what we can. So we forgot the println. Easy to forget. That's the println. The other thing I was going to say we forgot is if we look at the code, I forgot the simple thing, which is you got to put one of those. And notice that I can't do it inside the rep. I need to actually do it outside the rep. Okay, so right up top, I'm going to do a sys out of the vertical bar separator. Don't need to escape that. And then again, don't don't bother putting a comment, okay? Because I can read that sys out just as well as anyone. You can read it just as well as anyone. So I don't need to do that. Okay. So we only want to print, oh, see, here's a problem. So we don't actually want to do the println here, because what this does, this goes over the 3 we want to do the inner loop. It's going to print, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong figure. It's going to print the dots, print those, print the dots, and then we need to rep, print the, okay, so the println actually needs to go there, I think. Let's just debug it and see. Okay, run, debug. Okay, so we're going to go into draw. So rather than step through all of this again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the breakpoint there. I'm going to run, resume. No, okay, so it did too much. It looks like it's printing out. Okay, it never got the println, so I got the println wrong. But let's see what it should have done here. Oh, okay, we've actually got a bug because, let me think about how we're going to solve this. It's doing what it was coded to do, but that's not the right thing. So it printed the 1, the 2, the 3. We need these as printlns. Okay, hold on a second, let me think. Okay, so the problem is that we actually need to reverse the reps and the outer rows. It's not going to be a triply nested loop, so that's good. What it's going to be is it's going to be the outer loops. I need to repeat twice still, but I need to do that inside here. This is where I need to repeat twice. Then these guys are all going to be the inner nested. So it's going to do that. Okay, so then this loop is going to meet up with this one. This is where I want to do the println. And this. Okay, and again, let's take the whole thing and let's fix the indentation. Source, correct indentation. Okay. So now let's go take a look at the whole code again. So now we're doing 3 rows. Row 1, row 2, row 3. Inside there, we're going to repeat. We're going to first print this opening pipe character. Then we're going to repeat this block twice. Then we're going to print the closing pipe. Then we're going to print a new line. Okay, so let's try this. Now, do I still have my breakpoint set? Doesn't look like it. We're going to double click to set the breakpoint. Run, debug. Okay, so let's step in. And then now I can run, resume. So we're about to draw the first row, resume. Run, resume. We'll draw the second row. Okay. Problem is the second row is fine except that it didn't draw the pipe character. Okay, so I see that now. Let's put that. Should have moved this when I did this rearrangement here. Okay, so now let's try. We've already stopped it. We're going to run debug again. Okay, we're going to run resume. Okay, so we're about to draw row 1. We're about to draw row 2. We're about to draw row 3. Okay, that's looking much better. Now, it's important to do debugging because, for example, later when we do graphics, it's really hard to tell what the final picture is. It's not so hard in this ASCII version, but later for graphics, it's really important to be able to debug because what may look like a box could actually be a set of vertical and horizontal lines that are drawn at separate times. Okay, so anyways, let's go ahead and resume and see what. Okay, so it drew the separator, and now I have not yet drawn the opposite cones. So it's not drawing those, but it's going to draw the separator. And it's going to. So let's take a look at. Let me move this window over here for the output. Can I make this bigger? Let's see. Okay, so here's the output. I've rearranged the windows. So this looks pretty good. Now what we need to do is we just need to fix up, we need to write Drawdown. So Drawdown is going to be almost the same code here. Copy all this. There's Drawdown. And what needs to change? Let's go ahead and copy this. And let's copy this. Now, by the way, this documentation for how you come up with loop variables is critical. It's absolutely required in order to get full credit. Sometimes in a small routine like this, it's easy to put it right here versus down here. But in general, I would like to see the documentation right here. And I think I'll do that in just a second when I get back. Okay, so what we need to do here is we need to figure out, so the count of dots is now 0, 1, 2. Count of triangles is 3, 2, 1. So this will be a good test as to whether you're understanding this. So 0, 1, 2 means that instead of a -1, it's a +1. And we have an offset here, okay, because when row is 1, we need to come up with 0. So we're going to have to subtract 1. I'll just make this a little tighter. And when row is 2, it's supposed to be 1. And when row is 3, that's going to be 2. So that's correct. This expression here, this is going to be, because it's going 3, 2, 1, it's a -1 times a row. And then let's see if there's an offset required. When row is 1, that makes -1. So in order to get a 3, we need to start out with 4. When row is 2, that's 4 minus 2, that's 2, yes. And then lastly, when row is 3, that's 4 minus 3 is 1. So that's the correct expressions. So this, of course, is just row, but row minus 1. But let's go ahead and use that as that. So dots, let's replace dots with this. Whoops, that didn't do it. No, that still didn't do it. Let's try copying this again. Dots, dots, triangles, goes there. Okay, so that should be Drawdown. Now we've already debugged this procedure, so I'm not even going to bother debugging this time. Let's just go ahead and run, and then let's compare it. Oh, okay, so the only difference is that we actually, if we take a look at this one right here, for example, the triangles are differently shaped, right? Triangles are differently shaped. So we need to replace the triangles here with a backslash first, followed by a slash. And then let's run it again. Okay, that's looking better. Let's take a look at the, like that. Good. Now, before you submit, I want you to use a website. Let me bring that up. Okay, this is a website diff checker. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the one that was given to us here, and we're going to put that into the original text section here, and then we're going to go to, oh sorry, that's not the one that was given to us. Let me bring up the one that was given to us. Okay, here's the one that was given to us. We're going to copy this again, go to diff checker, replace that, then go into our output. We're going to copy this again, put this in there, find the difference. Okay, so the only difference is there were some extra spaces in the original, so that's fine. That was kind of just an error on my part. That doesn't affect any of this. And then, what is that last one? Okay, so the only difference is that at the last row, I copied an extra line that isn't in the original, but that's fine as well. So this does compare. So let's see what happens if you didn't do it right. So let me go in and change. Let's suppose that we had done it the error, like the first time I did this, we had this, right? Slash backslash. Let's try doing a diff on this. Here, you see right there that it shows you that there's a difference between these two lines. Okay, so that's what I want you to submit. I want you to submit an image of diff checker showing that yes, you have actually compared the two images to make sure that they are the same. Now here's chapter 2, programming problem 7, which is the Space Needle, and you can see that the problem is somewhat similar. I mean, here's problem 6 and here's problem 7. They're both ASCII images. They both have several repeating sections in them. So for example, looking at this, I can see that this here is the same as this here. So I want a method that does both of those. And you can see that there's a spire right there and there. Some of these things are, okay, here's a repeated here. So I won't go through all of them, but you've got some repetition you want to create the methods on. Some of these are more challenging than the RocketShip. So for example, this one here, let's take a look at this. This is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then, so the number of spaces, it's harder because so there's 0 spaces here, 1, 2, 3 spaces there, 6, 9. So there's, instead of going up by 1, you're going up by 3. Okay, then you've got these underscores that you're going to have to draw. You're going to have to draw that slash, and then similar to how we had 2 stars, here you're going to draw these 2 pipe characters, and then the reverse is true over there. So the way that you create the formulas is the exact same way. All right, so that hasn't changed, but they are somewhat more complex in terms of the shape. Let me go back to documenting the RocketShip and tell you how I want to see this. So I mentioned that ideally you always want to put the comments for what's going on right next to it. Okay, so really I want this. It's there. It's, in fact, I don't need it a second time because these ones are going to be the same as that one. But these slashes here, we're going to put that there. Okay, so you should do that with all of your routines. Wherever you see an expression that has to be calculated like this, you should really write in that expression, right above that expression, show me exactly how you figured it out. Now, for Space Needle, and for RocketShip actually, if you want to do it scaled, okay, so this is scale 4, but, or actually this is scale 6. If you want to do it scaled, you can't, you have to go through a fair amount of work. And what do I mean by that? So for RocketShip can be scaled as well, okay? But in order to figure out how to do the scaling, what you have to do is I need you to see, so you draw out the cone, for example, in each of the 3 different sizes, okay? I want you to do all of this documentation for each of the 3 sizes. And then once you have formulas for each of the 3 sizes, it will be obvious, or not obvious, but at least logical then to conclude how this one, the one for the next size, and the one for the next size all fold into one new formula that is relative to size. Okay, and you're going to have to document each of those parts if you want to get credit for that. So I do not recommend actually that people attempt it unless you really find that the base Space Needle is boring for you and you really want a challenge, because quite frankly it's above most people's pay grade. And I'm not going to give you credit unless you do exactly like I said. You have to draw out all 3 sizes, you have to give me all 3 formulas for all this, and then you need to give me from those 3 different formulas of the expressions, figure out what is the new formula that is based off of the size, okay? Okay, so through this process, you noticed that I didn't draw it out perfectly the first time. Now, I do kind of wish I could say that I had intentionally done that to brilliantly show you how to make errors and correct for them. Fact is, I just goofed, okay? I have not done this problem before. But the important thing is that it is fine to make mistakes, okay? I don't know of any professional programmers who always write perfect code the first time. And as a manager who's hired dozens of programmers, I don't really care whether you write perfect code the first time. What I care is that you do it logically, that you be able to use the debugger to figure out what you did, and that you get it right in the end, okay? That's what's important. So it really is important that you learn how to use the debugger to see these things happening and to help you write your code correctly. So that's Chapter 2, Programming Problem 6, the RocketShip, and that hopefully gives you a good lead-in on how to do Programming Problem 7, Space Needle. It's going to be the same kind of thing. You're going to break it down to the different components for each component. And also, you know, I didn't make too big of a deal out of it, but I want you to always have a working program at each point. So, you know, if you're doing this section here, whatever you want to call that, okay, program that in and then run it. Okay, make sure it actually gives you what you want, and then program this section in. Okay, run that. Make sure it gives you what you want. You're going to see once you're done with this section, you should see it repeated here, here. So you're actually going to get twice as many things, right? So don't get surprised that why didn't it work? Why did it print 8 instead of 4? That's actually correct. Then when you print this, you're going to see this not once just here, but you're going to get this, this, and then you're going to get this, and then this, okay? And then you're going to figure out how to draw this, okay? Then you'll get this first half all correct. So anyways, keep working on it, keep refining it, test each section one at a time, use the debugger, okay? And then you can handle any problem. Those people who are trying to memorize code or get it right perfect the first time, in the end, they don't end up doing nearly as well because every programming problem is different. And so it's much more important that you know how to use the tools than it is that you memorized code. Okay. All right. So good luck to you on the Space Needle. Hopefully this has been a good introduction to a problem like the Space Needle, and you should have. Let me review a couple of things. So number one, I showed you how to draw your JavaDoc headers. That is very important. I want to see JavaDoc headers. I want to see ASCII art for each of the JavaDoc headers. Okay. Number two, I showed you how to do these loop expressions. That's very important. I will not give you full credit unless you give me those loop expressions. And as I showed you at the end, please put them next to the individual loops themselves. Number three, I showed you how to name your variables intelligently. That's very important. The farther we get into this, it doesn't make much sense now why you would call it row versus X. I mean, it's pretty simple, right? But as we get farther and farther along, not naming these things correctly is a recipe for disaster, okay? It's very easy to see what is r slashes, okay? If you called this J and you made a mistake and you're using this as J, okay, you'll never know, okay? You're going to have to spend twice as much time. So use intelligently named loop variables. Commenting. I've also given you demonstrations of both commenting and pseudocode, because when I wrote my comments, those comments were actually pseudocode, okay? That's the level of pseudocode, and there's lots of examples in the book of what pseudocode is. A lot of people are confused as to what pseudocode is. There's tons of examples. I've shown you these examples, okay? The pseudocode lets you write your code, okay? Pseudocode should be good enough that someone else can take your pseudocode and write the code for you, okay? But some people make the error that they document every single line of code with a comment. Please do not do that, okay? I can read this line here just as well as you can comment it. So if you put a comment for draw space, that actually just slows down the process of reading your code, okay? So you want to comment just things that are challenging and things to tell me what this block of code is, okay? And the last thing I showed you was the debugger, and so please do learn to use the debugger. It's going to solve a lot of problems for you. So remember, when you want to set a breakpoint for a line, you double click on the left and this little blue dot comes. Or if you don't want to use the mouse, you can go into let's see, run and toggle a breakpoint, Control-Shift-B. That will work as well. So you're going to set a breakpoint. You're going to go into run debug. It'll stop at that breakpoint, and then you can use resume to jump between breakpoints, or you can use the step into and step over to maneuver around, okay? So that's an important thing as well. All right, good luck to you.